Hello and welcome back to the channel, folks. I am your host, Vortex from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you're new to the channel, what we do here is we try to help and train more mobile music producers. And we're currently training over 1,000 producers all over the world. So make sure to smash the likes and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how and when to use insert versus send effects. In terms of processing and signal path, what will usually come first is, of course, your insert effects. And then only after that comes the send effects. And that's because insert effects are only used for one track, while send effects are used to affect multiple tracks at once. So really you can think of insert effects as shaping that body of the sound first, such as EQ and compression. For example, fixing or removing offending frequencies. And with send effects, you can think of them as sending them out to sea. So you want to think about these send effects more in terms of liquid or motion effects, such as reverb, delay, or perhaps even a chorus. And then you can use the fader to determine how far out to sea you want to send your sound and how wet you want it to be. You see, the history of send tracks is mostly for analog gear, where an average studio may only have 1 or 2 delay or reverb units. And so it became very handy and very cost-effective to send all of your instruments through those 1 or 2 effect units. And then as production moved to the computer, back when computers were very slow, it also ended up saving on a bunch of processing power by again sending all of those instrument tracks through 1 or 2 effect tracks, instead of applying all those effects as insert effects on every single track. Now, of course, with today's computer processing power, this becomes less and less of an issue. However, this channel is specifically working with mobile devices such as iPhones and iPads. And while these devices are extremely powerful, they're not quite matching that processing power that you can find on a desktop, though they are becoming closer and closer with each new passing generation. So send effects can be still very useful for saving on processing power for us mobile music producers. So without further ado, let's get right into showing you how and when to use these send effects versus insert effects in Cubasis 3. Alright, as you can see, we do have our Cubasis 3 project pulled up here, but before we get into that, we did want to quickly go over the agenda for the video today. So the first thing we'll be doing is showing you this demo song that we created with a sample here, and then we want to show you the different insert effect examples that we used, and then we'll show you the send effect examples that we used, and finally we'll demonstrate why using a send effect for things like reverb and delay is much better than using an insert effect in most cases. So let's go ahead and hear what this 8-bar loop sounds like with all of our insert and send effects applied. So as you can hear, a pretty simple 8-bar loop there, where all we have is a kick, snare, hats, a bass, and an acoustic guitar. Now, in an ideal situation within Cubasis 3 here, you will have your project separated like we have into groups. Because ideally you'll have some insert effects on your track and then make that track part of a group, and then maybe have an insert effect or 2 on that group track, but then that group track will have a send effect on it, such as reverb. So here we have 3 drum tracks that are a part of a drum group and 2 instruments that are a part of an instrument group. So when it comes to placing insert and send effects, this is the most optimal way of doing it. For example, having an insert effect on your kick, like a channel strip or a studio EQ, then having that kick be a part of a drum track, where you can further shape the sound and then have that drum track have a send effect. For example, a reverb that will affect all 3 drum tracks. Another point to make is that when using the same send effect on multiple instruments, this can also make them appear like they are recorded or being played in the same room, making for a much more uniform sound that appears more coherent. It's much more difficult to get instruments to sit in the same space and sound good in the mix if they're all using different reverb in their insert effects. And as we said before, it really comes down to taste for how many send effect channels you want and when you're using them. So let's go ahead and dig in here. So here we have our 3 drum tracks. We'll select the kick first. Let's take a look at our effects within here. We have our channel strip, which is applying some extra drive and saturation. and then our studio EQ, which is helping the kick to sit in the mix by dropping our mids and increasing our lows. Now here you can see that Cubasis 3 makes it really easy to tell the difference between insert and send effects. Here on our kick track we can plainly see that we have our insert effects right here, our channel strip and studio EQ, and then we have an entirely different section here for send effects. Now within Cubasis 3, any send effects that you place here, for example, let's just add one right now. We'll add an internal effect such as delay. Close that out. Any effects that you put here, any send effects that you put in the send effects section will then be accessible and available to every other track. So if we then tap our snare track, we can then see that this delay is available in our send effects for use whenever we'd like. And we can check even the double bass instrument track. You'll see that the delay is still available in the send effects section. We can see that, just like we said in the intro, all the insert effects that we have on our tracks are therefore shaping our sound first before applying additional color and additional effects to them. So for our kick, again, we have that channel strip, which is just basically a simple compressor that we're using, the studio EQ. For our snare, just an EQ, and for our hats, just an EQ. So we're not applying crazy additional effects within our insert effects, because we do want to keep the character and the original sound intact. And for our instrument tracks, it's very similar. For the double bass here, we just have the EQ, and for our acoustic guitar sample, we just have an EQ. Now within Cubasis 3, as we showed earlier, the send effects is available for every individual track. However, it is much more ideal to place your send effects within your group track, saving on processing power and giving you more control over all the sound within this group. As you can see for our instrument group, we are also using the send effect reverb. However, we're using slightly less of it than our drums are. So if we go back to our drums, you can see it's using a little bit more. But they are still using that same send effect, which again is available to every single one of our tracks, but is best used only on our group tracks. There are many advantages of using group tracks within Cubasis 3, another of which is being able to solo or mute the entire group. So if we just like to hear the drums in this track, we can do that really easily. We can also do things like turn down the volume of the entire group at once. So if we go to our mixer, we can see our drums group track here, indicated by our little group icon here. This will allow you to mix much more efficiently and with much better results. So what I want to do now is play back this acoustic guitar loop with the reverb as an insert effect first, and then we'll show you the reverb as a send effect. So we have this loop soloed. Let's bring up our reverb. And now what we're going to do is steadily increase the reverb as the track plays. Now, do you see how as we increased the reverb more and more, it distorted the sound to where we couldn't even hear what the original sound sounds like? The reverb ended up smearing and drenching our guitar so much that the original character in the sound was lost. And now, let's try using that exact same reverb effect, only in our send effects slot instead of the insert effects. So we'll disarm our reverb effect, open up our send effects, enable our reverb there, and bring those properties up with the E. And now let's hit play and slowly bring in that reverb just like before. Now, can you hear how it didn't distort the original sound? Can you hear how that original guitar sound still came through perfectly clear? Because here the reverb is very much complementing the sound and being added on top of the sound instead of as an insert effect, completely distorting the original sound. So as you can imagine, this is really important in your music production. So just to quickly recap, we do want to use effects like reverb and delay in our send slots, and sound shaping tools such as EQ and compression in our insert effects slot. Because again, first we want to shape our sound and make sure it is as clear and great as possible so we can get it, and then only after that do we want to apply additional effects like reverb and delay to really allow those sounds to shine through the mix. Alright, hello and welcome back everybody. We really hope that this video helped you understand the difference between insert and send effects. And as you can see, the possibilities of combining these insert versus send effects allows you to pretty much have limitless control over your sound. As we said, it really does all come down to personal taste. So again, don't think that you have to follow all of these rules perfectly, because always remember, the best songs and the best music is always made up of a combination of both following and breaking the rules. And in the future, we'd also like to do a more in-depth video using these insert and send effects to create more space in your mix, which will include dealing with effects like panning, and stereo width. So make sure to smash the likes if you want to see that video in the future. And of course, we already have a bunch of Cubasis 3 videos on the channel with more coming every single week. So if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to check those out as well. And on a quick side note, we also just recently dropped a new Patreon post detailing what we've been up to and how we've been improving the channel, as well as give you a few behind the scenes photos and a glimpse into some future videos. So if you're not a Patreon and not an official member of our mobile music army just yet, make sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/mobilemusicpro, where you can subscribe for as little as $1 a month, which helps us build out our foundation of support so that we can keep going and making more videos. And as always folks, remember to like, subscribe, and share out this video if you enjoyed today's content. So until next time everybody, keep talking music and we'll see you later.